Welcome back to Enlighten Up. You are listening to episode 17. Who am I? Jim Carrey, Ascension, and Mike's first Michaelism. That's right, everyone. Mike dropped some wise words on all of us towards the end of the show, and we are excited to share that with you. I was certainly impressed, and I know Lisa was too, so stay tuned for that. But before that, we also get into a little intro of Ascension. What is it? What is the process? But we also talk about Jim Carrey and what was considered to be an outburst on the red carpet. Was it an outburst of craziness, or was it hidden enlightenment? We're going to get into that, but before we do, we're going to talk about the discussion of who am I? Well, we're going to delve deep into the idea of Know Thyself and how it becomes one of the major fundamentals on any journey of the self. But before we jump into the episode, I want to remind all of our listeners to please send your dreams in to our email, info@enlightenup.us, because we are going to be recording with Jim very soon to have all of the dreams analyzed. So if you'd like to have one of your dreams analyzed, then don't miss out on this opportunity and have them sent in before midnight on October 15th. That is the cutoff date. So if you haven't sent them in already, please do. We've already got some dreams and we're excited to share those on the air with all of you. But for all of you who haven't yet, please remember to send those in. But until then, let's get back into the episode of 17 and hear what we all had to say. You are here with Lisa Watson, Michael Ronayne, and myself, Nicole Frolic. And today's episode, we're going to be talking about the phrase, Know Thyself. And I thought that this might be a good topic to bring forward because we do a lot of talking about discernment and understanding what truth is from an individual, from your own individual self. But how are you supposed to really understand discernment if you're not really sure who you are? Now, you hear this a lot in the spiritual community about remembering who you are. And this pertains to understanding yourself on the soul level and the many past lives that you've had here on earth and perhaps before earth. But in this particular lifetime, do you really know who you are? Does Michael know who Michael is? Does Lisa know who Lisa is? And do I know who Nicole is? Like, these are questions that can really take you down a very interesting path if you start to ask some deeper questions. So one of the reasons why we meditate, why we take the time to do breath work or to do some journaling, to take that self-reflection time, is to go inside, understand perhaps what's going on the interior, which usually gives us many insights as to what will happen on the exterior. So for instance, when we look outside at our world is often a mirror for what's going on internally. And that's when we can then take the time to begin the process of observation of self. So, Michael, when we strip away everything that we identify ourselves with, for instance, family, job, income, status, nationality, age, gender, what are we left with? Have you ever asked yourself the question, like, who am I if I didn't have this job? Who am I if I didn't have the family I have? Have you ever asked yourself any of those questions?
It's weird how you ask this now because, and I swear to the audience that we didn't conspire before this episode, but I've started asking myself those about a couple of weeks ago, especially after our podcast where I was talking to you guys about my challenges of keeping depression away from me. Because I want to know that in case I lose my job tomorrow, that's a huge case of identity. And I think we talked about that before. And if I do lose my job, who am I? And things like that. So yes, I recently asked myself those questions.
And where did it take you?
Oh, you're really going to put this on me. See, Lisa, this is what happens. What did I say? I go, can you please start, Nicole, with your side? And all of a sudden it's thrown on me.
Okay. Well, you know what? Okay, I will start with my side. I will, because I've asked myself this question where probably around 2011, 2012 is when I really kind of broke out on my own, working for myself on the island in Grand Cayman. So I was in a completely different country than where I was born. So there were hurdles that I had to jump that I wouldn't have had to jump had I been working in Canada. And building a business for myself, building up the clientele so that I could support myself financially was a huge struggle in the beginning. And I had to go through many months, if not almost an entire year, of extreme financial struggle, to the point where I would sometimes even have to lean on my boyfriend at the time to support me, even just a little bit, which I never liked. I was always I prided myself on being an independent person, and so that was very hard for me to ask for assistance at that time. And when because I was working for myself and it was a client-based business, if I wasn't working, I was doing nothing. And so I would end up sitting with myself many hours of the day, feeling useless, feeling unproductive, feeling like I wasn't offering anything to the world. And that left me with my own mind. And I started to wonder what my purpose was. Who was I? And I started to really question my own self-worth. And my self-esteem was dropping dramatically during this period because I couldn't support myself in the way that I was used to, or the way that I wanted to. And I went into a depression. Because I realized that I identified, part of my identity was built into how much money I was making, or was I at least able to take care of myself? And that really weighed on me. It was very hard, and it was the one time where I know I was in, I'm going to say, a minor depression. And it strained my relationship. It strained all of my friendships because I started to become a recluse. I wouldn't want to go out. I wouldn't want to do anything, partly because I couldn't afford to do much. But even doing activities that don't cost money, I just didn't want to do anything. And it was in that time frame where I really had to get honest with myself and start changing the way I identified my self-worth. And I had to do a lot of inner work and change my value system. And that was really hard in the beginning. But once I finally did and realized that money is not going to be tied into my self-worth, or my job is not going to be tied into my self-worth, that's when a lot of things were able to shift for me. And that is also how I was able to get out of my depression. And subsequently, as I did that, all of a sudden clientele started coming in and my work started to build up, and I managed to build up an incredible client base, and was easily supporting myself well after. So it's interesting. It's interesting when we actually take the time to go within and start to ask those deeper questions and start to reflect on being honest with ourselves as opposed to what we may think we'd like to believe about ourselves. If that makes sense?
Makes sense to me.
So, Michael, what are the questions that you've asked yourself, or any answers that you may have come up with?
Okay, I'm gonna piggyback off of what you said. I'm glad you did start, because there's a lot of things that kind of came up in my mind. I think one of the things that has really helped me, and I am getting better. I feel better. I feel stronger. And, you and I have spoke about this a couple of times in the last couple of days. But, like, it's like, what has changed in me? What do I feel? Why do I feel better? And I hope I keep this good feeling that I've got. I hope I'm just not, like, going to have ups and downs all my life. I'm going to try to keep it steady and increase my fulfillment of happiness. But one of the things that I think was affected me in the past was I looked at my identity in two different ways. I looked at my identity not only as how much money I make, and it didn't necessarily mean about my job, but it was like we were worried in this world about our stature, our class, like how much money we make compared to people, unfortunately. But another huge chunk of my identity came from my significant other. Like who I'm going to be seen with, or be with, and what do I look like as a couple with this person, things like that. And that was such a horrible negative way of looking at your identity. And the only way I realized this was I have been single for a good amount of time, but a good amount of time that is healthy for me. Like, it just drives me crazy seeing people and go from one relationship literally to the next, and a lot of my exes do it, and I'm like, what? They just, I'm gonna say, like, they just trade me in for another guy, and it's like, it's just horrible. But then again, I saw myself doing that too in some relationships in my 20s, and it's like, you don't get a chance to know who you are when you always need somebody else to be part of your identity. So by being single, it forced me, and it's not fun being single at the beginning. It gets better, and because you want to, like, really work on yourself and be the best person possibly before you get into another relationship. But that forced me to say, who am I every day? And it was not good at the beginning. It was negative and negative, negative. But as time goes, and as I started really working on myself on many different aspects of my life, I became more of like, that's the old Mike I remember. That's the old Mike that I knew back when I was a child, back when I was extremely happy with not a care in the world. And I felt like it's just made the biggest significant difference in my life. And just like what you said, Lisa, or Nicole, is like, I felt so alive now, and I feel people see that, and they just want to be in my life too. And be around me because I'm positive, and I want to be around them because I'm positive. And that has been the most significant change I've gone through, especially particularly starting this podcast with you two, because you guys, I mean, I have to think about this stuff because you guys make me. But it's good. It's really healthy, and I'm really excited to see how much better I can get and feel great and bring positivity to other people. So going back to your question, who am I? I'm still finding out, but I'm still excited to find out every day of my life. And if it's one thing that I feel that I'm great at, is when people come around me, it's like I can help them become brighter in their life too. And I'm like, maybe this is part of like what kind of roles I can play in life. It's not my job. If I lose my job, yeah, it's going to suck, because I gotta now have a little bit of a worry about finances in the future. But I'm not too worried about that, because I got great people around me, great people in my life now that could help me be me, if that makes sense.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you feel like, if you were to look at the people who you've surrounded yourself now versus, say, the people you surrounded yourself, say, let's just say 5 to 10 years ago, is there a significant difference in the type of personalities, or?
Absolutely, but but the biggest difference is I stopped judging. I don't go judge people, go out with someone and then go to another friend's house the following day and talk crap about the person I went out the day before with.
But did you used to do that?
Yes and no. Yes and no, meaning like yes, because I would judge certain parts of them and still call them my friend. And that was an asshole thing on my part to do, but I didn't realize what I was doing. And so I think it wasn't necessarily the difference of people in my life. I think it's a difference of my mind and my perspective. Because it's hard to have dark people in your life when you're feeling so good.
Exactly. That is such a good thing to say, Michael. It's because, and this is, I think, something that Lisa and I had a conversation over the weekend. We had gone to Arizona for a friend's wedding, and there was a couple there, and we were talking to them, and Brian was there. He was bringing in his skepticism and all that great stuff. But we were talking about how perception creates your reality, and that if you're choosing to see only negative things, then then that becomes your reality. And because you've chosen to go deep within and start doing the work on the inside, that now gets to be reflected in your outside world, whether it's in your relationships or the activities that you're doing, all that stuff. It just becomes matched to your frequency because you've done all the great work.
You're a vibrational match. That's why, like the law of attraction, you attract to you what you're vibrating at, whether it be positive or negative. Like negative thoughts breed more negative thoughts and negative people. And it's really, and we talk about it in almost every podcast about how, whether it's the people you're hanging around with or the stuff that you're listening to on the radio or the television, or, those things all impact your frequency and what you ultimately end up bringing into your life. So as far as knowing yourself, I'm not sure if you really answered the question, Michael. I guess you did say it's
no, I mean, I don't know myself all the way. I feel like I'm getting to know myself. I feel like and it's like you're kind of like unwrapping an onion slowly to see who you really are, and you're kind of getting more excited, if that makes sense.
That's beautiful, actually. I think that, for me, I'm that person who's gone from relationship to relationship that you were talking about.
You were, or you were not?
I am, because I was married I was with the same person for 28 years. When I was 18, I met my ex-husband and, got a divorce, and then ended up, it was a relationship. It was more of an open relationship, but it was still a relationship that I was in. And then, broke up with him, was like, oh, I'm going to do this on my own thing. I don't want to be in a relationship. I thought I just want to take time to be by myself for the first time in my life. And then, Brian popped into my life. And as much as I tried to resist him, it just didn't seem to work. Which I'm thrilled with. Obviously, I married him, and I really feel like when you're with the right person, you have the freedom to still get to know yourself and be in a relationship. And in a lot of ways, being in a healthy relationship helps you to get to know yourself better, even faster, because you have that mirror around you all the time. And, you start to learn things about yourself. As long as you're doing it right and you're not getting, sucked into that other person's world or letting them prevent you from truly being yourself, which is what happened in my marriage. I felt like, and I think in any marriage where you're raising children, it's difficult. It's, you don't have a lot of time to yourself. You're always so busy. There's so many people that have needs, and you have to put your own needs and wants kind of on the back burner. But I didn't do it. My relationship wasn't a healthy relationship, and I didn't give myself the opportunity to get to know myself. So I felt like I didn't really start to figure a lot of things out until after I got divorced. And it's regardless, I think that as you age and as you grow, you're constantly changing. So there's always like a new person you're getting to know, right? Like when you're different in your 30s than you were in your 20s and your 40s. And it's like, wow, your priorities start to change. You start to learn things. So I think that it's an ever, ongoing process, this learning who you are. And I think it's great to be single and have the time to do that by yourself and know yourself. But I also believe that it's possible to do it with somebody as well.
There's also another thing, Lisa, that you just remind me of is like when you I truly do believe you should give yourself time to be single in between relationships. I really think that's very healthy. And I feel like normally if you don't, it's because you're doing something out of fear. And in most cases, out of fear of being alone. And if it's one thing that you guys taught me is like you don't make the best decisions out of fear. Mm-mm. And so it's like, and you didn't go marry Brian out of fear. You married Brian because you wanted to, and you wanted that in your life. You might have actually resisted him at the beginning because of fear, but you got through that.
You know, the fear that I truly had, and you know, Brian asked me out, you know, when we first met, and I said no, and I just kept saying no. You know, like I really don't want to. And even, you know, when we ended up going to Telluride together for the first time, you know, the story is that I kept saying, this isn't a date, you know, we're just friends. And because I had this fear of losing myself again. I had been in such a long relationship and a long marriage, and I just wanted to have that freedom. And the relationship that I was in before Brian, for a couple of years, it was, I guess I can say this on the air, but it was mainly a sexual relationship. But the guy that I was with, we were like really good friends. Like we got along really well. And there was an understanding that I did not want this to be, I knew this wouldn't ever be a long-term thing. So I felt like during those 2 years, even though I was with him, at the same time, I was really getting to know myself. I never let him hold me back from anything, and he never did. And it was more of just like we were best friends. You know, and I had the freedom to, you know, go out with other people and do other things and stuff. So, you know, I think that that's important, that you feel like you have, you know, that freedom to make just the choices that you want to make, and I don't know, make mistakes just because you feel like it. Like that, I feel like that's what I did after I got a divorce. Is I just wanted to be a kid again. Like I wanted to be 20 again and just, you know, dance and party and drink and, you know, just have fun and just feel and live, you know, feel that freedom. It was just like the most amazing feeling to feel like I was just free to do anything that I wanted to do.
Not worrying about having to say good night and good morning to people. It is kind of freeing sometimes.
Not feeling like I had to be home for anybody or anybody and tell them where I was. And my relationship with Steve, who I was with for those couple years, was not like that at all. Like it was, you know, I just did what I wanted to do. And I really, really needed that. I think that's really important. So I don't know if I know myself yet, but I think it's an ongoing.
Well, I wasn't it you guys or something that it's like every, you know, you think you know yourself, but in 10 years, you're going to look back going, oh, that wasn't me. Because, you know, you're like, you're different at 30 than you were at 20 and 40 than you were at 30. And as long as you're improving, I think that's great.
You know, and one thing about, and I want Nicole to talk about this a little bit because, I don't know, I think you just know a little bit more about it than I do, but, or you're better explaining it for sure. You know, the concept that we're all one and that everybody is our mirror. And so things that people do, you know, are just like, say they annoy you. Someone, you know, there's this, whatever it is, or it's a challenge in a relationship that you have, that is brought to you for a reason to help you see yourself better or help you to understand yourself on a deeper level. And that's where I think that a healthy relationship can actually help you learn who you are and grow even quicker than not being in a relationship. Does that make sense?
Do you know what I'm talking about? I know what you're talking about. I think it boils down to the self-awareness. So if you are self-aware and are consciously making a choice to reflect and take the time to observe what's going on, then it doesn't matter whether you're in a relationship or not, because you're always in a relationship with self. So that, I feel, is the most important. And if you're in that state, then you're in a position to build healthier relationships with those around you. And the ones that aren't willing to do that with you, you let go. It may just be that it's not the right time or they're not there, and that's okay. But what, like, in regards to the idea of oneness that you were saying, is it the aspect of understanding that, say you've got an annoying coworker who just does something every day that annoys you, it's like a ritual, and instead of allowing it to just be about that person's just so annoying, about instead of pointing the finger and putting it all on that person, ask yourself why you're so annoyed by this person. Because
Yep.
I think that happens too in relationships where there's certain things that we love about someone in the beginning, and then all of a sudden they turn into the most annoying aspect of them, and what we used to love we now like can't stand. It's like nails on a chalkboard. And those are great moments to go inside and ask why. Why did something turn from amazing to annoying in whatever period of time that it was? And a lot of times we like to just put it on the other person because it's much easier. It's much easier to put it on the other person. However, the reality is that all of the people who come into our lives, even sometimes strangers who pass us by, are offering us an opportunity to go within and take the reflection that we see of ourselves in that person and use it to our advantage to learn and grow. And it's almost like we're being given clues and hints of what to start looking at, and ways to discover and uncover what it is buried deep within that we haven't taken the time to observe yet.
I was just going to say the mirror part, like truly trying to understand like how other people are your mirrors, because we create the world that we live in. And that concept has just been always really hard for me to wrap my head around. Like, if somebody's, I don't know, always one way and it's annoying you, like trying to understand how is that a mirror to me. Like, say it's about somebody being late. Like, you have a friend and they're late all the time, and that just bugs you. And so if that's a mirror reflection of yourself, but you're someone who's always on time, maybe you're early all the time, it's hard to understand how that applies. And I read something recently that said that maybe it's to bring, like, that you're not always late. So it's not that you're late that's bothering you. It's that maybe you're really hard on yourself, and time is like really important to you or something, but it may be trying to teach you or show you something about yourself in aspect to time. So
or it could be that the lesson there that person is showing inside of you, that maybe you don't need to hold on to it so much as like some sort of ruling, like, can you let go of that need to control when you're supposed to be with someone, when you're not, like there's this kind of level of respect. And I agree, like, you don't want to be wasting anyone's time. So there's that point. But are you someone who never lets go and just go with the flow of things? Perhaps you're always trying to control things. And this is maybe this person's always late, so that you can start looking at why does it irritate you so much? Can you not just let go and be in the moment? Like, I feel like that's something that could come up out of that.
And that makes perfect sense to me. And I think the only way to truly start to understand those things is, like you said, to start to get to know yourself. And getting to know yourself is knowing what kinds of things bother you. And I think journaling is a really great way to kind of work that stuff out. Like, it just, so-and-so was late again today, and that really bothers me. And starting to pay attention to how it is that you feel, and not just sloughing it off as, Well, it bothers me because it's, socially unacceptable to be late all the time. Like, I don't have to journal about that. I don't have to explain that to anybody. It's just wrong to be late. But instead, if we just take the time to take responsibility for our own feelings and really listen to them and not judge them, and, get our mother's voice out of our ear and society's voice and the teachers and everything that has programmed all that stuff into us, and just say, why does it bother me? Like, forget society and what everybody else says is supposed to be, but how do I truly feel about this, and why do I think it bothers me so much? And I don't think that we take the time to sit with ourselves and ask ourselves those kinds of questions and give ourselves the time to get an answer. Because I think, when we ask, we will get an answer. But I just think as, in general, we're not taking the time to do that.
Yeah, and I think one of the big lessons that became so important for me is that when I did finally start to take the time to understand myself and go within and really take a deep, dark look at more of my shadow self, the parts of me that I didn't want to look at, that all of a sudden answers were just coming to me that I was asking subconsciously, unconsciously, and all of a sudden, in a moment of some sort of, whether it be in a yoga pose or a meditative state or just sitting under a tree and being relaxed, I would have an answer come in like a flash, almost like a download, and everything made sense. It's like it answered a question, and it wasn't necessarily I was asking a question in that moment. It could have been a question from years ago, and I started to realize that I don't need to look outside of myself for all the answers, that the answers do come from within when we take that time. And I think that's kind of one of the things that holds a lot of people back, is that when they don't understand who they are and really truly take the time to go within and get to know yourself on a much deeper level than the surface that we want people to see or we project to people, that you're now allowing that higher self, that inner teacher, to come through and teach you through your own experiences and understanding and insights by taking the time to be the observer or be the witness. And I think that's really beautiful, and I think that's super empowering. And it's why when we did have that conversation about children a couple episodes ago, and why I would want to teach my child how to meditate from the very beginning, is because I feel like that's one of the best tools that you can equip a child with, is to know themselves, is to take the time to start understanding themselves, so that when they're in any situation in life, that they're starting to understand who they are, what their needs are, what they truly want, what they're passionate about, what they don't like, what they're not willing to compromise on. These are big things that we need to understand about ourselves, and until we do, we'll never be equipped to make the best decisions for ourselves in perhaps the timely manner that we would appreciate. And it may take a lot longer because we're not taking that time. So, like, what does, if you think about it, someone who doesn't know themselves, what does their job look like? What do their relationships look like?
Well, trying to be somebody else or be what we think other people want us to be.
And I just saw this a couple of days ago, and I sent it to Nicole, and I'm like, this guy nailed it. And perhaps we can put a link on our website. Is Jim Carrey?
Oh yeah.
He nailed it. It was like I couldn't even explain it better, and it like just opened up. Like, yep, that's exactly what it is. And all it is like when you're trying to be someone you're not, you are pretty much going down a bad path.
Oh, thank God someone smart's coming out of Hollywood right now.
He's a rare few, but yeah, he's got it. And people, you know what? And sad thing is, the judges come out. People are like going, "What's wrong with him? Is he going? He must be crazy." Like, who cares?
Okay, let's talk about that. That I think is a really good segue, because it completely aligns with everything we're talking about. When you don't know yourself, when you really don't understand who you are, and you're not taking the time to get to know yourself, when someone else is, and they're saying things that are maybe beyond your comprehension because they're talking at a level that is probably a little bit deeper than where you're willing to go. And let's face it, a lot of people don't like to dig deep within themselves. They love to dig deep into other people, but they don't like to dig deep into themselves. Then what happens is you don't understand what the person's saying, and instead of saying to yourself, wow, I don't know what he's saying. Why don't I know what he's saying? Maybe I need to know what he's saying? Instead, it's like, that dude's crazy. He's lost it. Like, and that's a major projection that happens a lot. It's happened with me. I'm sure it's happened with one of you at least, if not both, where you go to have a conversation with someone about something that is maybe on a little bit of a deeper level, and they just look at you, their eyes are glazing over, and you can tell that they don't know what to say. They're not quite sure they're getting what you're saying. And sometimes they just change the topic altogether and make it as if they never heard what you just said.
I've had that happen.
Then
like the small talk.
Yeah, and that's what's happening now, is when you have like a Jim Carrey come out of an industry that is so based on the surface. It's all a projected imagery of what they want you to see, not what's actually going on underneath the layers, that you're naturally going to get that reaction from a lot of like the media and I guess even peers within his industry who are going to critique him and judge him as crazy because none of them even know who they are, especially actors. It's all about playing a different person all the time.
That's good.
It's crazy. So
we're all little actors now with social media.
This is true.
And I try to, for example, over the weekend, as you two know, I had a little bit of a car challenge, and it could have been a major disaster. And someone on my Facebook asked me like, well, at least you're smiling. And I'm like, yeah, because it was.
You're alive.
Well, that's what I was excited about. I was alive. Nobody else was dead. I was like, this is a blessed thing. I felt so blessed. And even though something very potentially negative happened to me, but like, that's who I am. And I don't want to be on social media and be somebody else. At least I try not to be. Every once in a while, like you guys keep reminding me, we're all human. And every once in a while you do get caught up on ego shit. And every once in a while, I'll catch myself in my mind judging someone, and then like if I catch myself, I go, Mike, you're judging someone. Don't be that guy, and try to learn from that. But we're all little actors now with this world.
It's true.
I think we always have been. I mean, whether we did it on social media or, who you are at home and how you are with your spouse and your family. You open the front door and you leave, and a lot of people are someone different, and later you find out that people have struggled with depression or alcoholism or anger management issues, or, we don't really know we don't allow our real selves to be known. I mean, that's what was so great about, recently, Michael, and the off-air conversation that we had, which then got put on the air, about yourself and your struggles. And, it's okay to be real. It's just, and that allows you that allowed you the freedom to be yourself and let other people get to truly know who you are, which hopefully will have that ripple effect that maybe other people will decide that it's okay for them to be vulnerable and let their friends know what's really going on with them.
And guys, that was so cathartic for me. That, I think, just doing that episode for me personally helped me so much that I didn't even realize it at the time. And it's like ever since that episode, things have just been. Maybe it was that shower thing, Lisa. You never know. but it was I think just doing that, just admitting weakness to people who have love for you is huge in your life. And that's something I would definitely highly promote in the future for people who are trying to help themselves. Because a lot of depressed people try to convince themselves, first of all, that they're not depressed. And then when they find out they are depressed, they try to keep it from others, and which is extraneous work to keep your emotions and feelings away from people. And I feel like if we do a better job of like admitting the human part of us to people that are bright, if you want to use you guys' language, like bright or bright lights or whatever, I think it's a really great tool to help heal yourself.
Well, I think that's
like what 12-step program, or I think of like a group of alcoholics or drug addicts or whatever, and that's the purpose of those meetings, is to just be allowed to be yourself and admit your weaknesses and say the truth in a safe environment,
not be judged.
Yeah,
and not be judged. That's what it is.
Well, that's what's so great about this podcast, and I think it's one of the things that the three of us appreciate, and I think our audience appreciates. If you don't, please write in and tell us why not, because that will help us. But that we really do try to be our authentic selves on this podcast and as open and honest as we can, because there's no point in hiding anything, it really doesn't serve any of us, and I don't see the point of trying to portray a version or image of one of ourselves to maybe meet the standards of a listener or someone, in the audience that may or may not agree with us. We have to learn to be our authentic selves and stand in that power and understand that we're all individuals and we're all going to have our own journey and our own path of how we get to those places, and just honor one another for where we're at and be honest and keep the dialogue open. I think that's what's most important. And I think that's one of the things that this country in particular is struggling with, but many countries are, is that no one's willing to keep the dialogue open and just listen to one another and understand and take the time to understand why you feel so, strong in your beliefs of certain things, and why you're not willing to listen to other people's beliefs, and what is it that you don't want to see. These are all questions that are really valuable when we take the time to go within and start to first understand ourselves, because we're not really able to understand one another if we don't yet know how to understand ourselves. So it always has to start with number one.
And you have to be yourself first.
Yeah.
I think, and being yourself is being vulnerable to, maybe criticism or judgment. But, it's nice when you have people around you that are supportive. Michael has us, and he felt safe enough to say what he said, and to have just one friend or, a group of, maybe that you go to, or something like a support group where you feel like you can say what you really want to say about yourself. I mean, I know that I've had the greatest learning moments and just felt like, God has sent me an angel when I've, met certain people in my life that have become such good friends to me. And I just felt like such a comfort level with someone. Like my whole marriage, I struggled. My ex-husband had anger management issues, and I never told anybody. I mean, I was just the smiling face that, I have the most perfect relationship and everything is great.
Yep. Oh boy, there's a lot of those.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I did that, it was more because I believed that I could make it better, and I wasn't trying to judge my husband even. I understood why he behaved the way that he did, and he was going through a lot of pain, and I didn't want to be negative about it. I didn't want to talk behind his back sort of thing, But the thing that I could have done is I could have spoken about how it was a struggle for me. Not that it was necessarily all his fault, but it was my fault too, because I didn't allow myself to just feel what it is that I needed to feel and share that with people and get have support. And I felt like I just had to carry it all by myself. But there were times that, I became friends with someone and we're still, great friends to this day. And I just felt like I finally could tell someone that my life isn't all as rosy as everybody seems to think it is, like that I struggle, that my home life is not always easy, and it was just getting that off my chest made it better. It just like it gave me this new strength, like, oh, okay, at least I admitted it, it's like shining the light on something. And it's okay just to say, I'm struggling and I could use some support.
Well, this is something that you and I have learned recently. We both were faced with something where we had to be honest with the level of difficulty that it was having on our mental state, our physical state, our emotional state of, instead of trying to be, the super strong person and show that you have it all together, we were both like, shit, no, this is hard, and like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to struggle. I'm tired of struggling with this. And it's like, as soon as we both were able to voice that, it's like this relief washes over. It's like, oh God, I don't have to carry that anymore.
Yeah, like it's okay to just say, this is fucking hard, like I don't have to carry the world on my shoulders or do it by myself. Like, I'm a very optimistic person, and I've always, not like I'm putting rose-colored glasses on, but I believe that you manifest your reality. So I don't want to talk negative about things. Like I would never say, oh, my husband's such a jerk and he's so difficult, because that to me only brings more difficulty and negativity to it. So I found it was really hard for me to, how do you talk about your own struggles without making it negative? And I think that there is a way to do that you just, it's okay to say, I have challenges in, my relationship, and I'm working on them, and I can see, the future's going to be better or whatever, and looking at it in a positive light. It doesn't have to be complaining and doom and gloom and I'm a victim. You don't have to come from that place, but it's okay to say, wow, I'm really going through some challenges right now. And, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's really, really far away, and it's a tiny little light, like the size of a pin, but I know it's there, and I'm going to get there, and I'm going to, keep my chin up kind of thing. But it's okay to admit that it's sometimes hard.
Yeah, you want to honor where you are in that moment.
You don't want to lie to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's on our topic of getting to know yourself. And that's why I say, to journal about things, it's okay to, if you want to just write it down on paper and just say, this is fucking hard and today sucked, and at least you're getting it out, and you're getting it out on paper, and then you can just kind of keep writing. And as you keep writing, you'll realize things will start to turn more positive, and maybe you'll come up, with some solutions, or you'll ask yourself some questions like, what is this? I'm not sure what this is trying to teach me, or maybe you'll ask God for help, or whoever it is that you want to pray to, and say, I need some guidance. How can I look at this differently? What can I learn from this? What is this trying to show me about myself? Because if you ask the questions, the answers will eventually come. Like Nicole said, maybe you'll just be in the bathtub or standing in the shower or brushing your teeth one morning, and all of a sudden, something kind of pops into your head, or you'll be listening to a podcast and somebody will say something, and then you're like, oh, now I get it. So, the answers come from mysterious places, but if you ask for the help and the guidance and the understanding, you will receive it somehow.
Yeah, it's like, Michael, you were saying that to me last night. You know how you read that quote, you're not
Okay,
you're
so
not
I
spiritual.
finally figured it out. Okay. Spiritual being on a human journey. I screwed it up last night.
Yeah, but you know that quote, as we've all heard it. It's pretty mainstream, especially when you're on Instagram now. Like, there's lots of quotes going around.
Yeah.
But at that
Is it
particular
spiritual
moment in
thing?
your life, you know,
It made sense.
yeah, it really
It made
resonated
sense
with
because
you.
and just dropping that, like it's like, and maybe that's what you guys are really trying to say is like certain things make sense at certain times. Like even our own podcast, when I re-listen to them, it pops like something like completely makes sense where it didn't during the podcast, or it didn't like register to me during the podcast. And like have faith. I think that have faith in things working its way out and making sense as long as you're in a way going down the right path or the correct path. And I think part of what we're talking about today is how do you know you're on the correct path? Well, you got to know you.
Well, whatever path you're on, it's the right path for that moment. So,
I guess. I mean, that I'm not sure if I really agree with that statement because there's a lot of bad paths people are taking out there in the world. I mean,
yeah,
look at the
but
sad
you
thing that
can't.
happened in Vegas, but like, it's like, I feel like you have a better chance of making better choices on the path that you take.
Okay.
If you're going.
Get you to the right
Yeah,
path. Like,
so-
you have to go down this road to get to the other road. If you didn't do this, then
Right.
you wouldn't have ever been able to.
And perhaps you did take a wrong path for a while, a year, 10 years, a bad marriage. You know, there's never you can get back
you know
on the right
what?
path.
I don't necessarily think it's the wrong path. I call it the scenic path.
Okay, that's a better way of saying it. I agree. Because I unfortunately had to experience some bad things in my life. Lisa did too. I'm sure Nicole, you could come up with a few that got us to where we're at today.
Yeah.
Right, and we're all the people that we are meant to be right now. And it took all of that, those wrong paths or wrong turns or whatever to make us who we are. And we hear that all the time, but it's true. And, and I think I said this in a previous podcast, I don't think the purpose in life is to come win the human race, to accumulate the most toys and have the most money and the most perfect job and the perfect relationship and drive the best car. I mean, that's not the stuff that matters. It's the relationships that we have along the way. It's the getting to know ourselves and the learnings that we do along the way. The things that we learn along the way, that's what's important. That's what this life is about.
Yeah.
So is it really a wrong path? How can we judge it as a wrong path?
Yeah. I feel like it's either like the scenic route or the the shorter path, or, maybe you take a detour, maybe you took a left when you wanted to take a right, but perhaps you needed to take the left and you just didn't realize it. And there was something around the corner there that you needed to get through in order to maybe, when you get back on the path, take a shortcut the next time. Like, you just never know. Life is really weird that way.
I'm a little iffy with you guys when you're saying it's always going to be eventually the right path. I mean, I feel like some people's paths are so dark and negative that it leads down to pure evil and destruction.
Yeah, but then you hear about like the people who perhaps, end up in jail and they have all this time to read and self-reflect, right? They're now completely removed from the outside world and they completely rehabilitate themselves and then end up writing this incredible book and end up coming out being able to inspire.
Yeah, there's some good cases and then there's just some bad cases. You have to admit that.
Yeah, but you don't know what someone may... Okay, let me throw this idea out at you. Some soul may have come into this life purposely to do some darker work, decided to take on that darker shadow life to help teach us many things. So instead of us having to go through that shadow work, they did it for us. And actually, that's a beautiful thing.
It's hard to see that in some cases. Like, I mean, today is the day with the Vegas thing, and it's like it's hard to see that guy going up there and shooting everybody as like, oh, let's look at it as a teaching lesson. I know I understand what you're saying, Nicole, but it's really hard for me to accept that on certain cases.
We had this conversation in Tucson over the weekend with someone that we met at the wedding, and he was saying something about, like Hitler and how he didn't understand, we were talking about judging people. And that,
it was about knowing right and wrong, and how do you not know right from wrong? That everyone at some level, basic level, understands when they're doing something right or they're doing something wrong. And, how do you justify someone who does such a horrible deed, like, say, Hitler?
Without judging them.
Yeah.
And we were just...
the reality is that if you don't have that in you, if you don't have that in you consciously to be at that level of, say, Hitler, which most of us don't, it's very hard to understand. It's very hard to understand, but I think that's one of the biggest lessons on this human journey, is having compassion for all, even when they don't have compassion for anyone else around them but themselves. That's a hard one, and it's not easy, but there's definitely lessons there for us.
Yeah, there definitely will be.
So, but if I think about it, there are things where, I see people, I have, through working with so many people individually on a very intimate basis through massage and yoga and things like that, coaching, that they often, I am seeing now more than ever, people leaving their corporate jobs to pursue something more meaningful, a career or a job or a business, entrepreneurship, whatever it may be, pursuing something that now they're starting to understand that is something that they want in their lives that they didn't know beforehand. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. I think that that's a really good indication that people are starting to take the time to understand themselves, what their needs are, what their hopes are, what sort of meaning they want to get out of this life. Is it just to, become the 9-to-5 robot, and just go through the motions of life? Or is it something else? And I think that, personally, I've seen that a lot lately. And people walking away from 6-7 figure jobs to pursue something that brings more happiness than the dollar bill.
That's a beautiful thing. I did it. Walked away, from my job and just decided that I just wanted the freedom to be myself. I didn't want anyone telling me what to do anymore. What time I had to be at work and how long I had to stay there and whether I could go away for the weekend or I couldn't go away, or, to me that was all part of really trying to get to know myself. And I'm like, I can't be who I really want to be and get to know who I really am if I constantly am being told what I have to do all the time. And I think that you're at your best when you can just create and explore this world and yourself. And I think that's where you find your happiness, and then you become a better citizen as far as you're more useful to people. Mm-hmm. And you can, shine more light onto this world, which is what we all need. We need more light.
Definitely need more light.
That's my job. I figure that's my only mission in this life, is just keep shining my light. If I don't know anything else, I just know that, a smile can make somebody's day. Just simply smile, walking by a stranger and just flashing a big smile at them can truly lift that person's spirits and make their day. And it's the little small things like that that make a difference.
Yeah, those little small things really impact people in ways that I don't think we give enough credit or credence to. So
I feel it all the time. I don't know why I just thought of that, but I'm just like, I'll be driving and sometimes look over at someone and they'll just smile big at me or something, and all of a sudden I can feel my vibration go up, and I'm like, thank you so much. I don't know why they're smiling, or maybe they're just happy or something. But
yeah, that's a good point. I've been hanging around with my friends' children a lot more often, and just seeing like there's an infant baby that I've been hanging around. And just love the little guy, and just seeing him smile for the first time. I mean, you cannot be in a bad mood when you see that.
True. That's why I love being around little kids. I love toddlers. They're just, always, well, sometimes they're screaming and crying, but even that's adorable. And they're just happy and want to spread light and love.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about that then. Let's talk about like the whole idea of raising your vibrations through acts of kindness, or people doing kind things for you that make you feel good and put a smile on your face. And, when, and how that all relates to Ascension. This whole idea of, because we haven't really talked about Ascension yet on the podcast. We dabbled in it a little here or there. We've talked a little bit about 3D, 4D, 5D. We haven't really talked about it a lot, and I feel like knowing yourself is one of the major fundamentals in the Ascension process, which is about moving out of 3D, which is lower vibratory energies, and into 5D, 6D, beyond, which, many people aren't really aware what that even is. I know, Michael, you were like, what the hell is this 5D stuff you guys are talking about? Like, and you refer to your brain as a 3D brain often when you don't understand.
I'm still like that, so.
But I feel like when you start to ask these deeper questions and you start to get to know yourself better, it is just a natural happenstance that you start to raise your vibrations and you begin to move more into the higher vibratory states, which are, happiness and joy and peace and harmony, love, all those great things, and move away from the anger and the fear and the guilt and the shame and all of that stuff. So getting to know yourself is a huge part of the Ascension process, where all of us are trying to become better versions of ourselves, move away from the hatred and anger and judgment and fear, and into the more compassionate, loving space of acceptance. And you can only move there first by accepting yourself, loving yourself, finding your own joy, not seeking it outside of yourself. So I think this is like kind of the starting point, one of the foundations of the whole Ascension process.
Yeah, and from what I understand, Ascension is just, moving through those different levels and those different dimensions, and it's really just having a different perspective on things. Like when you stop judging people and you stop judging situations and you learn to just live in the now and be more of an observer of what's kind of going on, that is Ascension.
Yeah. Well, let's use Jim Carrey as an example. Okay. Let's go back to Jim Carrey. So, when he did that interview and then, said all those things, and everyone's like, he's crazy. And then he went on to explain it later after the fact. And again, some people weren't getting it. He's coming from a very fifth dimensional place. He's coming from a much higher level of consciousness. And so when you're someone who is resonating within 5D, and the reality is that actually we all do resonate in 5D at some point when we're in really happy states, when we're laughing and we're free and we're just enjoying life. Like, you are in 5D. But when you are, stuck in like a fear-based energy, a judgment, those kind of things, you're within 3D. Now, the difference between 5D and 3D for someone is that when you're in third dimension, when you are in that state, you can't see beyond 3D. You just can't, because you're not vibrating fast enough. You're not vibrating at that higher frequency. However, when you're in 5D, you can still work within 3D. You can see 5D. So you have the ability to look within and be within. However, the person in 3D can't. And that's why I think they don't understand higher levels of consciousness when it's spoken to them, and then their first action is that's crazy, which is a judgment, which is 3D. And so if you think about it like, if we think about like 2 dimensions, right? That's just like a flat surface. There is nothing above you, right? There's nothing below you. It's just a flat surface. But when you're in third dimension, you can see the flat surface, but the flat surface can't see you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the same thing applies for 5th dimension. People in 3D can't really understand 5th dimension, or, we've talked about communicating with your angels and guides. The reason why many people don't have that ability yet, or haven't learned how to use that ability, is because they're not vibrating at a frequency that matches 5th dimension and beyond. So when you do move into more of a 5th dimensional frequency, that higher frequency rate, you're now vibrating at that same level as your angels are, and you can now communicate with them. You've brought yourself up, and so it's no longer that you can't see them because you've taken yourself out of that lower frequency. So I feel like if we're just talking about day-to-day people around us, that when one of the hard things is that when you do start to go through this ascension process and communicate your thoughts and your feelings and experiences, some people who are not resonating at that level are going to find it very difficult to understand and comprehend you, just simply because they don't see 5D yet. It's not within their reach.
Right. You can only hear what you're ready to hear as well,
Yeah.
You're only going to learn the lesson that you're ready to learn, no matter how many times, and that happens all the time where people try to teach you things, and until the day you are ready to learn it and take it in, you're not going to. Is it kind of like, until you're ready to see it, you're not going to see it? Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, that's part of it. That's definitely part of it.
Well, maybe we should talk more about, like, in detail about maybe it should be a whole podcast though, about the levels of ascension and ascension symptoms and all of that.
Yeah, we'll definitely do a podcast on that soon. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, because I've learned a lot about some of those things. I feel like I've had a lot of ascension symptoms lately, things that are kind of strange. And as I read into it, I have learned that, those are ascension symptoms. I'm not crazy. I mean, I might still be a little crazy, but
I think this would be good for a different podcast, because there is a lot to this, and I'm definitely still learning. I'm definitely in that 3D state still, and I don't mind it because I feel like, you guys both started off 3D as well.
Absolutely.
So I think we should save this for a different podcast. It'd be a good topic.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So like nice little intro here for everyone, something to look forward to. But FYI, we all came in 5D because we came in with the light, so we just all kind of shifted back down into 3D and learned the programming of 3D. But
fair enough.
But we'll get into all of that.
I think when it comes right down to it, it is about the programming of 3D, and I think, as far as our topic goes today, and learning yourself and learning and getting to know yourself, it's about pushing the programming away and being able to step away from the programming long enough to feel what it is that you truly feel, and paying attention to that and what it is that you want, and not all that other junk that's being thrown on us all the time and trying to distract us from really getting to know who we are and connecting with ourselves.
Yes, very good. Yeah, definitely.
So it's all back to the matrix. It just always boils back down to getting out of the matrix. So work on that.
Yeah. So I think that's good. I mean, Michael, do you have anything you want to add to this, or did you have any questions that have
With
come up?
the Ascension, I definitely will. I mean, but with that kind of stuff, I definitely will. But again, I'll save that for a different day. But I mean, it's funny that you brought up this topic because I honestly didn't know what the topic of the podcast would be until like recently. But like, it's just I just feel great lately, and I'm hoping to keep it going. And I really find value in this. However, I'll still bring some skepticism into a lot of the other things you guys got going on. There's plenty of room for that. But one thing I wanted to tell for both of you guys is like, it's like now I kind of understand going back to that podcast when I was like so negative with the love thing.
Oh, the love conspiracy one, number 6.
Yeah. Oh. You certainly it's a wanted prize. I've completely changed my mind on a lot of those things. I'm not talking about romantically. I'm talking about just in person with people. And I kind of really understand what you guys are trying to tell me back then. And at the time, I couldn't get it. And it took good things in my life, not good things like winning the lottery, but good positivity like that you guys have shared with me to really get back to that hope that oh yeah, there is love around, and I get to be a big tool in being that love. So I'm really good right now, and I hope if I come back next week or whatever, super depressed or whatever, I'm probably going to need some bipolar medicine.
Why? What's happening? Where are you going?
No, meaning like on next time we have a podcast.
Oh, next time you come back, I gotcha.
Remember, I don't live in Denver with you guys.
I see.
So,
Anyway,
is there anything from that episode that really stands out on what your thoughts were that have now changed? Like just anything specific?
When you stop judging people, the only thing left is to love people.
Ooh! Everyone write that down. That's a Michaelism. That was amazing. We need to put that on our Instagram wall.
And when you start loving people, all you see around you is love too. So it's like it goes back to that, like when you buy a car, you start seeing that car more often out there. It's kind of like that.
It's true. The more you look for love, the more love you're going to see. The more you look for the positive things in the people, the more positive things you're going to see. And only focus on the good drivers on the road, and you'll start only seeing good drivers. Like, it's just whatever you focus your attention on, you're going to see more of.
Yeah.
It sounds too simple to be true, but if you practice it, it's true. And I was telling someone over the weekend, you can just practice that in your own relationship, say with your spouse or a sibling or something, or, just start only focusing on the good things that they do and commenting on the good things that they do, and just don't even say anything about the other stuff. And you'll find that you're just going to start seeing more and more good all the time.
Yeah.
Such a neat trick, like magic.
Yeah.
Magic beans.
Pretty cool.
Magic beans. They're like the seeds that you plant here and there when you're talking to people, and you just don't know how they're going to water them, when they're going to water, when they're going to sprout. But I think that's what's really cool, is that we can have these conversations, and maybe you'll have a conversation with someone and they won't really get it, but you've planted the seed, and that seed could come to fruition either within a few days, maybe it's going to be weeks, months, years, but eventually that they'll get it. And I think that's kind of a beautiful thing, that we don't always know the timing of the understanding coming in, but when it does, it's so exciting. I'm so excited for you, Michael.
I am too.
Great. And I think it's important, I know we've said this before, but I think we can't say it enough, is be really careful about what you talk about with other people. If you like, the tragedy that happened in Las Vegas last night, if we're out, talking about that and the negativity, and it's just going to breed more negativity. We want to focus on the things that are going right in the world and in our relationships and in our jobs, and just share those positive things with people, and just keep talking about positive stuff, and you'll attract more positive things into your life.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean don't honor what's happened, because I think it's important to take like a few moments to honor the people.
Honor and feel sad.
Yeah, absolutely. But don't dwell on it and don't feed it. Like, don't keep perpetuating those.
You want to send love, and you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like I saw what happened. I watched a quick clip on the news, but like, if you continue to watch the 24-hour news channels, it will eat you alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we need to send love, send strength to all the victims' families and the victims themselves.
I agree.
You want to send positive energy towards that situation.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that you have to accept it as being something good that happened, because it's not. Or support, and they need your positive energy. They don't need your pity, your sorrow, and your sadness, and your depression, and your anger. That's not going to help them. They need, they need light to be sent their way. And it sounds ridiculous, I'm sure, to some people, but energy is a real thing, and if we send them good thoughts and prayerful and loving thoughts, it can impact them.
Yeah. So just be responsible with your energy. Know yourself. Know what you're putting out there. Know what you're feeding. Are you feeding something in a way that's going to feed love and positivity and support people in a very positive way? Or are you continuing to put your energy in a place that's going to drain energy, that's going to deplete love, that's going to only fuel fear and more anger, create more of that? We don't want that. So and that all comes from understanding where you come from, your energy, where your state of awareness is, and all of that. So
pay attention to your thoughts and your feelings.
I think it's a great way of ending.
Good. Well, I think the next time we have this podcast, Michael will be in Denver with Lisa and I, and we'll be able to do our very first podcast, all three of us together. So we're excited about that. And we will have Brian back with us.
Is that next weekend?
To your hats.
Is that this upcoming weekend?
No, it's the next time we record our podcast.
Because I'm going out of town for a little while.
That's right. Okay, I'm like, you guys just freaked me out for a second.
Also, I want to remind everyone that we still want to receive some emails. If you want your dreams interpreted, you can send an email to us at info@enlightenup.us.
Yes, we've already got some dreams coming in, so please send in your dreams. Jim will be doing our podcast with us very soon in the next couple of weeks. So if you can, please send in your dreams before October 15th. That's not the final cutoff date, but right now that's what we're aiming for. And we've already got a couple dreams coming in, so we're excited about that. And I think that's going to be a really fun show.
Yeah.
So
and Ascension talk in the lineup as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely get an Ascension talk in the lineup. All right, everyone. So if you like this episode, please share with your friends, because we know that you are, because our audience is growing and we're so excited that you are sharing us with your family and your friends, maybe your coworkers. We love you all so much. We didn't realize that this was going to take off and grow as fast as this is growing. I think we're all pleasantly surprised. Our goal for this whole podcast was just to be our authentic selves and share our experiences and, maybe help one another along the way. And if we could help someone else, that's an extra bonus. So thank you to all of you who are spreading the love and sharing our podcasts with those you know. Keep doing it. And if you need any more information about us, you can go over to our website at www.enlightenup.us. And of course, we're on all social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And I think that's it. That's a wrap. So, everyone out there, have a great week, and we will be back with you next time.